Good morning, everyone. For some of you, evening, depending on where you're coming from. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new faces. Got industry partners and BPO players and two broken arms. I think about half of you, I'll need you to sign an NDA on the way out before we wrap up. But no, it's good to be here today. I appreciate your attendance. And look forward to spending a little bit of time and talking to you about a few things. Educate you a little bit about Teleperformance, really at a group level, kind of who we are. We'll talk about some of the trends in the industry right now, talk about the market situation here in the Philippines. There's been a lot of talk about that. Many of you are BPAT members or attend many association events, so I'll do my best to not be too redundant and, again, keep this relatively interesting. I'll talk to you about some of the things that we do here specifically in the Philippines and across Asia to really differentiate ourselves and to avoid a lot of the commoditization that's at risk inside of this market. And then from there we'll go with a little bit of Q&A. So Richard did a pretty good intro and giving you a little bit of background about myself. I have been in the Philippines now for going on my 9th year. And it's been quite the journey. It's been a place now that I can proudly call home. We were joking at the table earlier about the road through the years and kind of the induction into Philippines culture, and I'll share a quick story with you that I think was my first eye-opener on where I was. And came to the Philippines a single man. I said, wow, what better place to be a single guy. It didn't last too long. About 6 months later, I met my wife-to-be, and through the courting process, which, for those of you not from the Philippines who have been through this process, I think you can appreciate it's like taking a little bit of a step back in time, and reminded me of the high school days. And it was the first dinner that I had at my soon-to-be in-laws' place. I think they were taking the time to really vet me out and see what this American guy was all about, and some of us have good reputations here, and some of us not so good. So I think it's a little fair for them to, see what I was made of. So I arrived at the dinner table, and I brought a couple bottles of wine. I felt I'd need one for myself anyway, just to calm the nerves. And shortly into the dinner, I saw things arrive on the table that I had sworn up until that point in time I would never eat. I think for the Filipino crowd, you can understand that balut is typically not going to show up on the dinner table. It did, and I proceeded to open the second bottle of wine. And I delved right in, and I've always told myself I'd try anything once, and I got through the first one. I definitely had to muscle my way through it. It was not easy. And as I'm doing so, the rest of the family is just staring point blankly at me, making the situation all the more uncomfortable. So I'm passing between red wine and balut, which if anyone's had both, it's not necessarily the best combination in the world. And I managed to make it through the first one. And then after that, no commentary. The eyes were still on me. And I said, this means I've got to give it another go, and I've got to try a second balut here. So I somehow managed to make it through the second one, thanks in large part to the bottle and a half of wine I've now had. And I get through, and the family starts to look back and forth at each other. They smile. I'm feeling a little bit better about myself. And then my wife's father leans into me, and he says, I got to tell you, he says, that's pretty good because I don't even eat that shit. So 8.5 years later, Pinoy na ako, pero the rest of my language is not so good. We'll jump right in and tell you a little bit about Teleperformance. Richard mentioned that we are the largest contact center provider worldwide, and there's a few different ways we measure when we say number one. One would be in terms of total global revenues, which 2011 figures were just published. Just under $3 billion, currently in 49 countries worldwide. We are the 148th largest employer in the world with about 130,000 total employees. As mentioned, about 15,000, approaching 16,000 of those here in the Philippines. In terms of client diversity, we have our largest client making up less than 7% of our total revenue, so diversification that really does not put us at risk. God forbid anything happened to one of our largest customers. And in terms of financial strength, we're a virtually debt-free organization that allows us to continue to have the capital and the power to spend and invest in technologies as well as strategic acquisitions. Teleperformance was founded in 1978 in Paris, France. We are a French organization, and it's really transformed itself through the years. About 5-6 years ago, Teleperformance was about 4th, 5th on the global scale in terms of total rankings. And for those of you that have grown up in this industry, and especially coming from the U.S. side, can appreciate the transformation that many companies had to make when the do not call policy rolled out. So we transformed really from an organization that was highly concentrated in a lot of outbound telemarketing services activity into one that is the inbound customer service and tech support center that it is today. Other ways, tenure, depth, and expertise of the management globally. We have the same founder and CEO today that we had in 1978, Daniel Julien. He's still very active in the organization. In fact, he was just here spending a week across Philippines and China. He's a frequent visitor to the Philippines, one of his favorite places to come. But in terms of the tenure, and I think as you engage with various people from the Teleperformance group, whether they be here in the Philippines or whether they be in corporate, you'll find a team that has been with the organization for 10, 12, 15 years. In terms of the contact center management systems, everybody's got your systems, right? You've got to have your tool, you've got to have your differentiating products. I'll share with you a little bit later one that was awarded Product of the Year a few years back for us that really has been a game changer for us inside of the space. Operational process, or what we refer to as TOPS, is the Teleperformance Operating Process and Standards. It's basically a standardized performance management tool. It makes a lot of our pieces interchangeable, but it allows for consistent and constant operations in a structured framework, and you find that same consistency whether you're looking inside of an operation in the Philippines, whether you're in China, whether you're in Turkey, whatever location we're in. So that's made a lot of our people interchangeable at the same time. In terms of physical growth, I mentioned already kind of where we were a few years back and where we are today. We're 35% larger than the second largest player in our space. And it's one thing for me and others to talk about ourselves, but the leading analysts inside of our space, between IDC, Data Monitor, Frost & Sullivan, Gartner, have awarded Teleperformance as the #1 player in our space for a few different reasons, and we'll talk about more of that in just a moment. In terms of the mix of services, again, really transforming over the last several years from a telemarketing organization to a predominantly customer care and tech support business. You can see the split, and this would be a global representation of how we split, with customer care and growth representing about 50% of that. When we say growth, so much of the care business these days incorporates some kind of sales activity associated with it, so that would be encompassed in this piece of the pie. Tech support really growing, and we'll talk more about tech here in the Philippines. And customer acquisition, debt collection, and others inside of the back office processing or KPO space. In terms of the mix of services by channel, again, global representation. In terms of the suite of solutions, our customers today are becoming more and more demanding. There's obviously large opportunities now with so much business outsourced and a lot of the tenure associated with it, that customers are now pushing for the economies of scale to be had or the efficiency gains to be had by cross-training different skill sets across multiple channels. So in addition to a lot of the standards like customer care, tech support, sales, we're entering into new space. Obviously social media being more and more critical. Contact center on demand. Our customers are looking for oftentimes not a third party, but their BPO partner themselves to bring forth the solution for the CRM and the knowledge base and having full integration across the board. Teleperformance Platinum is an offering we've created that specifically focuses on customer segmentation. And I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail later as we talk about some of the innovations inside of our space. Teleperformance is actually an early engagement process with our customers. Actually, it looks to build an endeavor with them that is our fraud risk assessment. really roll up our sleeves, completely analyze the existing infrastructure and the environment that they have, to understand what the current risks are inside of that model, so that we're best positioned to not only provide a value add that might be providing additional data protection or systems or tools enhancement to provide that protection, but of course protect ourselves prior to entering into that engagement and transferring the business from one country to another. Security SC Magazine actually awarded us as a finalist from the top 5 for top security worldwide. And this isn't just in the contact center space. We're actually up against companies like USAA, which have got absolutely some of the best top standards for security worldwide. I want to touch on all of these, and Richard mentioned another one that's very important to us is the Philippines International ICT Awards Employer of the Year. Of course, we have these awards now annually. We've got a ceremony coming up here in a couple of weeks, so our fingers are crossed that we'll continue to be a player inside of that space. We take a lot of pride in this award. He jokes about us having billboards and banners and advertising specifically this achievement. There's obviously a couple of keys to that. One is this is a people business. It's important for us to be able to advertise from a third-party perspective that we've been recognized as an employer of the year. So, of course, we want to aspire to be that company of the year, or we want to be your everything of the year. But for us, and as you'll see as I talk to you a little bit more about Teleperformance and its priorities and its focus, is all around its people. And a lot of companies do focus and put the people at the center of their business, but I don't think everyone does necessarily understands how critical that aspect is, and really what a happy employee means and how that translates into a happy customer base, and your happy customer base translating into a happy shareholder base as well. So Employer of the Year really aligns well with our own priorities and our values as an organization. Gartner recently released its 2011 Magic Quadrant, where they do assessment across the industry. This is not Philippines specific, this is a global assessment. You can see how the quadrant breaks out in terms of visionaries and each player's ability to execute, and the challengers and the leaders, and recognizing Teleperformance as a leader inside of this space. One of the key attributes to score well inside of this scorecard is to have a healthy representation from your client base about the quality of the experience that they receive with you. And many players are not able to provide those kinds of recommendations. So we've had a lot of success in generating positive customer experiences. And for me, that's absolutely paramount. In addition to ensuring that our employees find us the best place to work, is that every customer that we have is referenceable, and every customer identifies Teleperformance as a top player. And with that said, I'll keep this interesting and not so monotonous. I had listened to an industry analyst video, so you can hear kind of a third-party assessment of not just a single analyst, but actually all of the analysts who score us in this space.
We are a company moved by passion. The passion of more than 128,000 people all around the world. And this passion led us to achieve worldwide history.
One of the things I think about when I think about Teleperformance is the fact really that they're a pioneer in outsourcing. They began serving clients back in 1978, and then have moved forward and really propelled itself into a global leader in customer interaction management.
But the best assessment of performance comes from customers, such as the Boston Globe.
We weren't particularly happy with the quality of